Good evening, dear viewers. Welcome to All 24 Nightly News broadcasting live from Algiers. I'm your host, Karim Zachary, and up next are the latest headlines. ECOWAS postpones vital Niger military plan meeting, and U.S. emphasizes peaceful approach, and African Peace Council holds Niamey membership talks. Also ahead in our news, Khartoum clashes escalate, Sudan urgently seeks support withdrawal, and UN raises alarm over mounting hunger crisis. And we delve later on in the details of the sharp rise in irregular Mediterranean migration, the unprecedented numbers, the tragic casualties, and the recent English Channel boat sinking. And the escalating drone warfare between Russia and Ukraine intensifies as Moscow-Kiev exchange missile strikes. Hello again, and thank you for joining us. First off in our news, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, offered his condolences to his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in a message. The message reads, quote, "I learned with great sorrow and sadness the news of the floods and landslides in northern China, which claimed the lives of many victims, injured and missing persons. On this painful occasion, I express to you, the families of the victims and the friendly Chinese people, my sincere condolences and sympathy, wishing a speedy recovery for the injured, assuring you of Algeria's solidarity in these difficult circumstances." End of quote. And in other breaking news, the West African bloc ECOWAS suspended a crucial military meeting on the Niger crisis, scheduled in Accra, Ghana, due to technical reasons, as reported by French media. Simultaneously, the Wall Street Journal stated that the bloc won't engage in a military operation in Niger for at least 6 months. The White House, for its part, emphasized the opportunity for diplomacy to resolve the Niger standoff.
We also note that the Nigerian president reiterated the importance of prioritizing diplomatic negotiations and dialogue as the very bedrock of the ECOWAS approach. So again, we're still focused on diplomatic efforts. We still think there's space for that. And we obviously would like to see this resolved peacefully and with no violence and with nobody getting hurt. So that's kind of how we're coming at it. And again, we wouldn't be in that position if we didn't really believe that there was still a chance for diplomacy to win out.
And in related news, the African Union's Peace and Security Council postponed its planned Saturday meeting to discuss Niger's membership suspension. The African Commission stated that the postponement aims to allow additional consultations among member states. Hassoumi Massoudou, the Minister of Foreign Affairs in the government of ousted President Mohamed Bazoum, refuted the notion that ECOWAS' potential military action is aimed at war with Niger and its citizens. In a series of posts on the X platform, Massoudou clarified that the operation's target would be the hostage takers, urging the military council's leaders to hold the coup to prevent sanctions and the use of force against them. And in a noteworthy move, the Niger Military Council has made substantial leadership alterations within the economic firms and public utilities. This involved the removal of key roles, including general managers from entities like the Nigerian Electricity Company, Niger Petroleum Company, Niger Transit Company, Communications Company, Nigerian Postal Corporation, Coal Company, and Nigerian Social Security Fund. This decision was formalized through an executive decree signed by the Council's chairman, Abdurrahman Tiani. Still with the same file, following an ECOWAS decision, Benin has shut its borders with Niger for over a week. In a border town between the two nations, more than 100 trucks are stranded awaiting a resolution. Zahra Farjani provides the report.
Benin's decisive support for ECOWAS sanctions against Niger has triggered significant consequences for both nations, particularly along their shared border. The once bustling land border, a lifeline for trade between the two countries, now stands closed, causing considerable hardships for Beninese and Nigerian traders. The impact on Benin's ports, which have traditionally served as the primary entry points for goods destined for Niger, has been profound. The border closure has brought port activity to an abrupt halt, leaving a multitude of trucks laden with containers and merchandise and in adjacent parking areas. This disruption in the supply chain has led to an unwelcome spike in import prices, affecting the affordability of essential goods.
From the autonomous port to the various cities of Benin, Niger represents more than 80% of our trade. In truth, the closure of this border has already had many financial consequences.
The state of Benin must understand the suffering of the people of Niger and Benin because they live from this port. When you defend your interests, you must also think of the interests of the people.
Remarkably, border trade contributes to a substantial 12% to Benin's GDP, making it a vital economic channel for the nation. Some experts argue that political sanctions shouldn't impede the flow of trade among member countries within the West African bloc. They emphasize that such trade-related measures should ideally be spared to prevent adverse consequences for the economies and the livelihoods of these nations.
Benin will be more affected by the closure of its borders than Niger itself. For the first 6 months of 2023, this closure will have an impact of several billion francs. Benin sends 1.3 billion francs worth of products to Niger, so Benin's economy will feel the pinch.
Critics view the decision to close borders with countries neighboring Niger as an arbitrary move, resulting in negative repercussions for the people of the affected nations who rely on border activities for their livelihood. Niger, in particular, heavily relies on vital consumer goods from Benin, including sugar, rice, cereals, and medicines. A halt in these imports could profoundly impact the West African country, causing a scarcity of essential products and further straining local economies.
And in a related context, Niger's Defense Minister General Salifou Moudi held a meeting with Mali's Transitional Authority leader, Colonel Assimi Gueda, in Bamako, confirmed by the Malian presidency. The discussion specifics are undisclosed. Both Mali and Burkina Faso issued a joint warning against military intervention in Niger to restore the ousted President Mohamed Bazoum, stating it would be considered a declaration of war on Bamako and Ouagadougou. Mali's army confirmed the loss of 6 soldiers and injuries to 4 more in a clash with alleged terrorists near Timbuktu while en route to the city of Pierre in the northern region. Additionally, local media reported clashes over a dispute involving the occupation of a United Nations military base between the army and militants from the Council of Azawad movements in the country's northern area. Mali's National Civil Aviation Agency sent a letter to Air France alleging the airline's lack of prior notice and passenger inconvenience. This oversight may lead to the cancellation of the flight operation license for the summer season, originally planned to continue until October. In response, Air France suspended its flights to Mali and Burkina Faso due to the closure of the airspace in neighboring Niger following the coup on July 26th. Libya and Tunisia have united to enhance the Ras Jdir border crossing to align with global standards, making it a vital commercial gateway to Africa. After a meeting with Tunisian Prime Minister Ahmed al-Hashani at the government palace in the Kasbah, Libyan Minister of Economy and Trade Mohammed al-Houj emphasized their shared dedication to establishing the Libyan-Tunisian corridor, streamlining connections with African nations located south of the desert. The collaboration also extends to a joint commitment to ensure food and drug security.
Work has been done with the Tunisian Minister of Trade, and the signing of some memorandums of understanding has been prepared to activate this cooperation, as well as to prepare for the convening of the joint Libyan-Tunisian Committee in Tripoli during the coming period.
The ongoing conflict between Sudan's army and the Rapid Support Forces has resulted in dire consequences for the population. More than 20 million people are grappling with severe critical hunger, and a staggering 6.3 million individuals are precariously close to facing famine, as reported by the United Nations World Food Programme. Here's Salman Asib with the report.
In Sudan, the ongoing humanitarian crisis persists, entering its fifth month with no signs of peace on the horizon. Alarming warnings from United Nations agencies indicate that the impact of the war has driven hunger to unprecedented levels, affecting a staggering 20.3 million people across the country. Surprisingly, this equates to over 42% of the population teetering on the brink of famine, and these dire figures are anticipated to double from July to September.
Around 42% of Sudan's population had now been pushed into hunger. 6.3 million of those who were classified as experiencing integrated food security face classification 3 or 4 categories of hunger, just one step away from famine.
United Nations spokesperson Rowie emphasized the escalating urgency of the situation, citing the growing challenges due to the lack of assistance in Sudan. The gravity of the crisis has compelled the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations to step in, offering crucial livestock services and inputs, a move aimed at enhancing nutrition and food security for a massive 6.5 million people.
Since mid-April, the conflict has continued to spread, and its dynamics has become increasingly more complex. Gaining access to people in need of life-saving food assistance has also become more challenging and increasingly urgent.
The dire consequences of the conflict on Sudan's health infrastructure cannot be overstated. Doctors Without Borders has reported that a staggering 3/4 of the health institutions in the country are now non-functional due to the fighting. This grim reality not only jeopardizes the well-being of Sudanese citizens, but also hampers the entry of foreign health personnel, further prolonging the suffering of the Sudanese people.
A tragic incident occurred off the coast of Gabes in southeastern Tunisia, where a boat sank, resulting in the loss of 2 Tunisian immigrants' lives and leaving 5 others missing. The Tunisian National Guard reported that 13 individuals were rescued, with the recovery of 2 bodies, an infant and a 20-year-old man. Search operations for the missing are being conducted in coordination with the Tunisian Civil Protection. Meanwhile, Tunisian Minister of the Interior, Kamal Al-Faki, appealed to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Monica Nourou, to support the Tunisian Red Crescent's efforts in addressing irregular migration. A tragic incident occurred in the English Channel as migrant boat attempting to cross from France capsized early Saturday, resulting in the loss of 6 lives, with 2 individuals potentially missing. Frank Dersin, the mayor of the area, reported that a large-scale rescue operation was initiated around 6 a.m. local time, coinciding with numerous migrant boats attempting the crossing simultaneously.
First, the sinking of this migrant boat is a terrible human tragedy, and as we mourn these victims today, it's the responsibility of human traffickers, criminals, who send young people, women, adults, to their deaths on these dangerous and deadly sea routes.
Tracking also those traffickers. We are tracking those criminals because they're just having money on the situation of desperate people. That's why, thanks to the work of the French authorities, the police, the gendarmerie, we managed to reduce by 30% the number of small boats, and we're going to continue.
In related news, Frontex, the EU's border security agency, has announced a significant increase in irregular migration across the Mediterranean, reaching a 7-year high. The recent report indicates that the central Mediterranean route is expected to face continued pressure due to intensified activities by criminal networks skilled in smuggling migrants from Libya and Tunisia. Here's Islam Said with the full story.
More than 2,090 people went missing in the central Mediterranean, which is seen as the world's deadliest migratory route. These are the figures given by UN in 2023. It is a scary number for migrants who use the central Mediterranean route to reach the northern side of the seashores. An unprecedented level of irregular crossings from Africa to the EU bloc's coast, particularly via Italy, where just this Friday, an NGO ship rescued 76 migrants in the Mediterranean Sea who were on board a boat in distress.
We did a long search for this boat, reported by Seabird and also by the Italian authorities, who had asked us to investigate. Once we arrived at the coordinates we were given, we realized that there was a boat with about 80 people, which had a double deck and an empty hold, which is very dangerous and gives the boat a lot of instability. When our team approached it, they noticed the presence of many minors, including a little girl of less than 1 year old. The people were rescued and admitted on board the life support, and the medical team immediately worked to give them the maximum care.
According to the European Border and Coast Guard Agency Frontex, the serious increase is considered to be the highest since 2016. The irregular arrivals had risen by 13% between January and July, reaching more than 176,000 attempts. In the oceanic waters, some African migrants do whatever it takes to leave their homeland, even if they had to cross the Atlantic. A story was told by Nigerian stowaways who miraculously survived weeks of sailing above the ship rudder and ended up in Brazil.
I looked, there are foreign vessels coming. So I decided, if I have an opportunity to enter a vessel, I don't care to know where they are taking me to.
Yet again in the Mediterranean Sea, and regarding the dire situation of insecurity and instability that threatens many African countries, many migrants are willing to take for a shot by taking the central Mediterranean as a main route. However, the latter can sometimes offer them only watery graves.
The Eiffel Tower and its vicinity in Paris were evacuated on Saturday as a precaution due to a bomb threat. According to French police source, the iconic monument attracts numerous tourists during the peak summer season, causing frustration for some who had to endure a 2-hour closure and a long queue before the threat alert was eventually lifted.
We're used to London having bomb threats, so that's our major city in the UK, so we're kind of used to having bomb alerts and all that going off constantly, so it doesn't really surprise us much being a big city.
In other news now, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko emphasized the importance of dialogue with Poland, revealing that he directed the Prime Minister to initiate contact amid rising border tensions between the two nations. Lukashenko suggested that Poland was not independently escalating regional tensions, but he pointed to the United States as a factor influencing the situation. He also highlighted Belarus's willingness to cooperate with other countries.
We are a peaceful people, and we want to cooperate with everyone. I said in my Independence Day speech that we should also talk to Poland. I ordered the Prime Minister to call them and tell them that if they wish, let's talk and improve relations. We are neighbors, and we cannot choose our neighbors. God gave them to us. It's Poland in particular that exacerbates the situation paid for by the West. Not all the West, but the Americans. Americans bet on Poland, but Polish are not stupid too. They are our people. They are not slaves. They are completely aware of everything. We will be patient, and we will notice. We are open to cooperation.
To the Russia-Ukraine file now, the Russian Ministry of Defense reported the successful neutralization of 20 Ukrainian drones over Crimea. Of these, 14 were intercepted by air defense systems, while 6 were taken down by an electronic warfare system. In the Kerch Strait, 3 missiles near the Crimean Bridge were intercepted, and Ukraine's attempt to target the bridge with S-200 missiles resulted in no damage nor casualties. Stay tuned for further updates with Sofiane Kinturi in this report.
The Russian Defense Ministry announced the destruction of 20 Ukrainian drones, shot down 14 drones, while the electronic warfare system shot down 6 Ukrainian aircraft after launching into Crimea early on Saturday. Russian Air Defense Forces also announced that its forces shot down 3 Ukrainian rockets in the Kerch Strait area near Crimea's bridge. For her part, Russian Foreign Affairs spokesperson Maria Zakharova pledged to respond to the attack, which she considered unjustified and endangered the lives of innocent civilians.
Kiev's acts of sabotage give the international community an additional opportunity to see the real face of the Kiev regime. There can be no justification for their barbaric actions and cannot remain unanswered.
On the other side, Ukraine, which is seeking to establish safe maritime routes in the Black Sea, has started to register vessels wishing to use the corridor it announced earlier this week to free cargo stranded in its ports since Russia launched its military operation on 24 February 2022.
Of course, everything will take place under the supervision of the Ukrainian armed forces. We're doing everything we can to ensure security.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky delivered an international-focused video address, thanking a number of nations for throwing their weight behind Kiev in its conflict with Russia.
It is very important that every week Russia sees new international activity in support of Ukraine and normal life. Today I want to give special thanks to several countries that have taken new steps this week to make our people more secure, more protected.
Since the conflict started on February 24, 2022, Russia and Ukraine reached uncountable human and material losses. However, allies from both sides are seeking to find a peace plan to end this crisis.
In other news, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi accused the United States of destabilizing the South China Sea for its geopolitical goals. In a statement, Wang Yi urged regional countries to stay vigilant and work towards peace and stability in the South China Sea. He mentioned that Beijing has consistently proposed dialogue with Manila to address existing differences. Wang Yi also stated that Beijing is ready to accelerate negotiations with ASEAN members for a South China Sea Code of Conduct in alignment with international law.
The United States and other forces wish nothing but chaos in the South China Sea, so as to gain from the muddied waters, to serve their own geopolitical strategy. The US and some other forces have used the Renei issue to fan the flames. So discord between China and Philippines stoke confrontation and jeopardize the peace and tranquility of the South China Sea. I hope that the Philippine side will abide by the consensus reached in the past, cherish the mutual trust accumulated through the improvement in bilateral relations, and meet China halfway to find viable way to manage the maritime situation appropriately.
The Pakistani Senator Anwar ul-Haq Kakar has been selected as the caretaker Prime Minister to supervise the upcoming national elections, according to the Prime Minister's office. This decision followed a meeting between the outgoing Premier Shehbaz Sharif and the opposition leader Raja Riaz Ahmad. In a joint statement, they confirmed that the advice recommending Kakar's appointment would be forwarded to the President for approval. And finally, in our news, more breaking news around the globe in this quick roundup.
Preliminary results concluded in a 3-3 status outcome between Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's unity government and the opposition alliance. The polls have ended in Malaysia after the Malaysians cast their votes on Saturday to choose the members of the councils of 6 states, waiting for the official announcement of the final results. A minibus strike in Cape Town, South Africa has ended after the local taxi association came to an agreement with city officials. This strike caused chaos in the capital Cape Town, as minibus taxis are the main means of transport for commuters. The situation escalated to include violence and resulted in the death of 5 people. Algeria is preparing to participate in the World Athletics Championships, which will be held from the 19th to the 27th of August in Hungary. The Algerian team is seeking through its participation in the global competition with 10 prominent athletes to increase its medal collection in the World Cup. At least 80 victims have been confirmed by authorities on Friday in the latest death toll in Lahaina wildfires as rescue teams continue to survey burnt-out homes and businesses. Officials warned that fatalities could rise further as specialized recovery teams with cadaver dogs make their way into the town.
Well, that concludes today's program. For the latest updates, check our social media platforms. Thank you for tuning in, and remember to join us again tomorrow for more news. Goodbye.